Greetings and welcome to Ancient Library. This is Deep Ufology, live on Earth after ET contact. A special episode in which I'm trying to explore the possibilities of life on Earth after extraterrestrial contact and exchange, and additionally whatever procedure will include us, Earth humans, into a possible structure like a galactic federation or similar. A sort of community for life forms in a galaxy or beyond, so a big thought experiment which encapsulates the core essence of the questions of ufology. This is a special episode less focused on single UFO and UAP cases, but more on the bigger picture and the most certainly happening paradigm shift if Earth humans will have real contact and exchanges with advanced NHI or aliens of any kind. So let's start with the first section, the current state of ufology and the first official open contact, so basically our starting point. It's 2024, and if we look at planet Earth and the reputation of the field, which includes the question of encountering other intelligent life in the universe, it's realistic to say that it's a highly discussed subject in the public, but very little serious acknowledgement has been committed by the power structure to destigmatize the phenomena. ET or alien contact will happen most likely in a visitor type of scenario. So we are here and aliens move here and visit us, which is only achievable by using very high advanced technology, more advanced than currently Earth humans have on this planet. And especially types of propulsion, maneuvering in other magnitudes than we currently have, at least publicly known and acknowledged. So I got 15 sections here, which are basically influenced by a paradigm shift, and the paradigm shift is basically the ET contact. So one thing I was not planning to focus on was the possible scenario on how the first actual extraterrestrial contact will play out, like the real-time experience from the first minute through the first week. For example, if you're looking for this particular type of video, I'm pretty sure the Infographics Show channel got exactly that on their video list. I thought a little on what would be the most important questions to ask and the most valuable things to request or ask for guidance in what particular path to follow for science, technology, or any other imaginable field. Speaking of ET contact. So questions where people search for answers for thousands of years, like what is life, death, and God, for example. I got 15 key questions or sections, how you want to call it, influenced by a paradigm shift caused by official real open contact with a higher evolved NHI, humanoid, or any imaginable form of perceivable intelligence, extraterrestrial, ultra-terrestrial, etc., time travelers or breakaway civilizations. You get my point here. For this thought experiment, I might pick the OG extraterrestrial aliens from another planet. So let's proceed to the next section and start with the first key question. So the points might overlap slightly and the order is not of significance. Just two things I want to say before we start with the first key point, which is social life on a planetary scale and between individuals. So the absence of warlike behavior and the realization that we are one planet, one civilization of living beings, currently experiencing a more or less similar reality, and now even a potential unlimited number of other life forms, taking away our pseudo-prestigious position of the only occurrence of the so-called advanced human life, at this location and time and space, on the big planetary and small individual scale. Access to ideas and systems which are way more advanced and effective for our type of, our somewhat advanced humanoid life faction. The potential simple access to the knowing that there were other similar life forms long before us experiencing similar or other paths of evolution. Access to a pool of collective knowledge and social structures, advanced social structures I should say. I hope the simple realization of other advanced life forms existing in our universe will more or less slowly form a more humbling way of the general perception of life and its value. Make people more bonded and realize that we are all direct neighbors on our small planet and should work and evolve together instead of hindering progress with war, imbalance, propaganda, control and misery, as it is now for the most part on this planet. I guess this perspective isn't entirely new. I can remember people like Ronald Reagan talking about an alien threat which will unite all nations against a new third-party enemy. Kinda stupid if you ask me, and many people think this take and approach was the beginning of a forming evil aliens attack on Earth narrative, connected to a fake alien invasion and things like Project Bluebeam and other conspiratorial takes and on exotic technology creating all types of imitations and holograms to conduct such a fake alien invasion. But that's obviously not the matter of subject I was mentioning at the beginning of this first point on the list. A friendly exchange and contact, no warlike scenario against ETs, which honestly can only be taken seriously as a science fiction story, because there's no way, even if the aliens just got a little more advanced technology compared to us, that we stand a chance against them, because they know a lot more about every aspect of the shared reality we live in. That's certain. So let's move to the second point on this list, which is technological progress in all areas. Technological progress gained through contact and exchange with other species, or at least them showing us the right path, approaches to evolve in every section of science and technology. So this point is a very prominent one in ufology in general. Thinking about the tech levels and differences which are required to reach us rather primitive folks on planet Earth. Light years are still light years, so even 1 or 2 light years distance is a very high distance for us without advanced propulsion technologies. So these things are giving hope to reach an unimaginable level of perfection, at least in theory. And stories like we got fiber optics and other scientific breakthroughs from back engineering UFOs, like the Roswell story for example, and theories about UFOs which were supposedly dropped as gifts for us to explore and harness technology, like reverse engineer the UFO basically. We can speculate on how technologies and breakthroughs are shared within different human or non-human civilizations and communities in the universe. There could be a rule set like the aforementioned everyone for himself, or possible requirements to join a community or a galactic federation type of thing. But we're gonna expand on this community aspect later on the list. For this chapter I will try to visualize and stimulate some thoughts on how such scientific transformations could look and in what possible fields this could happen, if not in all of them. So of course the first things which come to mind are energy, electricity, healthcare and advanced propulsion concepts. If we live in a world with free energy, anti-gravitic propulsion and healthcare which would allow us to expand our lifespan by multiple 100 years, the whole world would look entirely different. And if you ask me, I guess there's a very high chance that we humans on Earth would F up considering our more or less primitive understanding of life, which is reflected by constant war and misery happening on a great scale on this planet. So there's also a high chance that we have to unlock and research these things for our own, even if it's already common stuff used by more advanced races throughout the universe. Because we could pick hundreds of fields of science and bring examples on how alien technology would advance our subjective viewpoint of them into unlimited levels. I will leave it at that for this chapter, but you can tell me any thoughts or ideas you have about examples on how ET contact would influence our science and technology today. So we go to the next point. Authenticity of religions and belief systems. So remove fraudulent and primitive old religions which suppress human evolution and progress. Potential creation of a new system living in harmony with nature and creation, and acknowledging and harnessing the existence of the spirit. If they can't give us technology or direct knowledge, maybe they can just point out what's not right and release many people of our planet from lifelong confusions or misleading. This point will certainly overlap with a later point called Complete History of Planet Earth as an external observer. So a somewhat unfiltered and precise record of the true happenings on Earth, in this case in regards to the development of religions, and for example the true and untainted record of very impactful figures like for example people like Jesus Christ. I guess this alone will clarify many things for many people. Maybe there's a true religion, but not everything can be truthful, especially not considering to include the general rate of failure human evolution has shown so far. Since we got nothing concrete to compare right now, this point remains relatively short at this time and space. And we move to the next one. Ufology will change, evolve and split up. Key point number 4. In my opinion, ufology will evolve and split up in all kinds of fields associated with the new and evolved knowledge achieved or unlocked in a potential post-alien contact or exchange scenario. UFO, unidentified flying objects, and UAPs are standing for not known objects, and everything what can't be explained. In this case, this wouldn't be accurate at the aforementioned scenario, so it has to be reworked, therefore evolve. There will still be unidentified things in the sky, and somebody will be ahead of us at any time. So ufology could be redesigned or split up into truly unidentified stuff and discovered stuff, which we know can be explained, for example. Potentially stuff like anti-gravitic propulsion, stealth technology. The stuff gets known to a point where we got a complete understanding of the processes happening with these technologies. I can imagine new well-accepted fields of science emerging, based on the new information we've gained as a civilization about space, planets and other now known things. Life forms scattered throughout the cosmos, to give an example here for one field. Please tell me what fields come to your mind if you think about the scenario, down in the comments. But let's move to the next key point. Key point 5. Nature, space, universe and multiverse. Or truly universal knowledge. So there I guess could be an agreement on the general perception of celestial bodies and general rules and patterns. Eventually nature and the universe. If there are other advanced life forms which are perceiving those more or less the same way we do. If we humanize this take, we could pull an analogy from our Earth. Even if people believe in a different God and way of life, they still acknowledge huge present things like oceans, landmarks, islands, mountains, and the weather, for example, as basically the same thing. Projecting this into the universe, you see where I'm getting at. Suns, for example, are so powerful, mighty and hot that even with advanced technology and evolution and a high developed spirit, there always will be a thing of magnitude, even if a civilization is able to build around things like a Dyson sphere, for example, or something along those lines. With that been said, let's talk about the universe and the potential existence of several universes, or the so-called multiverse. So if we are at a point in time in which we can barely leave our planet, the simple thought to put a universe in a scale or to describe its size is even tricky. I can imagine races which can traverse in space with speeds faster than light are not even fully capable of discovering every secret or data point to describe the universe for what it potentially is. Speaking of a multiverse or multiple universes, we could argue if we speculate to keep the bar a little lower at first and try to learn more about the high amount of reachable things, respective to our evolution. Even if we had a scenario in which we establish contact to a hypothetically race of human intelligence slightly more advanced to us. The things we could learn and the sheer option to compare things would be so valuable and awesome that I'm sure we would develop solely from that. Okay, we move to the next key point, key point 6, God creation and the Big Bang. A little bit of a mix of the last point and point 3, depending on the perspective. A mixed logical and religious theological point, but still contains of some of the biggest questions every human more or less asks in his life. What comes to mind here is that the total truth rules in the end. If there's a truthful and for humans understandable explanation for the existence of basically everything and how it began, and if who is the creator of the ultimate essence of the physical and eventually the metaphysical reality we are born into. Like I mentioned before, many of these key pointing questions, they are interconnected with each other. Like point 8, which is called life and death and the potential cycles. And the spirit, which in my opinion is on the same level of magnitude of crucial powerful knowledge, which would elevate our whole planet in whole different spheres of existence, and potential harmony with each other, provided by inheriting all these new learned things. This particular viewpoint, considering this chapter including things like God, could be debunked fairly easily, resembling a humanized way of putting things into perspective, so the chapter will end up rather short. Let's go to the next one of my favorite key points of this episode, which is called Key Point 7, Existence, Order and History of Intelligent Life in the Universe. Human, non-human, animals, and everything else. Also including the question of real human evolution and origin. I'm not really into the Darwin stuff personally. And there are honored scientists like Francis Crick, who claims the currently existing variety of genes in humans on Earth could not be produced in such a short time, like our human evolution. It's imaginable that humans are not from Earth at all. If we should enter a scenario in which we realize we're way more younger and primitive in comparison to other more older intelligent life forms in the universe, which are most likely recorded our whole path and could give us a more accurate truth than our boy Charles Darwin, but more on that later. So imagine if you are in an old school strategy, eventually real-time strategy type of game, and you could see the whole universe from a God's eye view. with the ability to zoom in and out, and instantaneously getting any information about anything you want. You could see all the civilizations in their evolution and how they may take totally different choices and choose different paths of progression with more or less success. All these potentially rudimentary and complex life forms visible at once. One of the most interesting things for me personally would be how other worlds look, how they are populated, and how a day on a certain planet would look like. The maps, landscape, weather, and potential vibrant life of an unimaginable variety from simple to overly exotic and borderline not perceivable, even for high-evolved, godlike beings who are far evolved on their whole speculative ladder I'm thinking of right now. I knew this video would be more on the free thinking side, but I need to behave a little here. Pardon me. We could speculate here about all types of reported alien races derived from the huge pile of stories stored in the vast library of ufology, and feel free to do that in the comments. But for now we're moving to the next key point, which is key point number 8, life, death, the potential cycles which are interconnected, and the spirit, and the potential of tracking the soul, if we're speaking of things like reincarnation. So again, one of the most asked questions is the subject of reincarnation and rebirth in general. I guess there are plenty of religious-based descriptions of reincarnation, most likely attached with the word karma. But what I mean with this is the existence of a spirit which is going through life and death cycles, and is gathering something, whatever it be, in a reoccurring cycle, not like many people are having the assumption of total blackness after their life in their body ends for whatever reason. Of course, even in 2024 we ain't got proof and we are not closer to answering these type of questions since thousands of years. How many people would live their life different, and if they knew it's basically never ending, eliminating fears, which by the way got highly abused by many religions in my opinion, through universal truths like the possible future learning of these things from a qualified source. Not a obey or you will end in hell type of fear control scenario, which I only could describe as malicious and reminds me of certain things which were forced upon people in a recent worldwide crisis. I will not go into any detail on this very critical type of take and information in this day and age. Talking about the aforementioned off-topic tangent, I guess. Even this point is somewhat connected to the more science and tech-based points and questions in this episode, for example. If it's possible to increase the lifespan of humans to multiple thousand years lifespan, it would become a whole new experience and a whole other magnitude. Speaking more, humanizing, god-like magnitude. So it would definitely be connected to the whole life and death cycle thing if it would be really a possibility to increase lifetime by several thousand%. Yeah, we move to the next one. General duality, sleep, dreams, awake and consciousness. So even without aliens, we learned and observed a few rules and patterns in nature with a certain amount of clarity, even if we are not able to decipher the deeper structures of, for example, why we need to sleep or what consciousness really is. We are able to live and make a certain amount of normal progress, like animals do as well. They are born into a world and in a matter of seconds or minutes the first programmed instincts kick in and work literally wonders. The nature of duality is everywhere. Hot, cold, poor, rich, tall and short, smart and less smart, yin and yang, etc. There are a limited amount of things which are opposite to each other or seemingly the base matrix in which our reality exists. Quick remark about the life cycle theory, which seems somewhat natural considering the aforementioned principle of duality, and opposite poles in which everything else happens. Not trying to be too philosophical here, which is kinda hard to achieve. Bear with me. I hope the picture in my head is somewhat successfully transmitted. Let's proceed with key point number 10. Time, dimensions, and time travel. So one thing which makes it different of being an animal or a human is the ability to measure time. Some people call it the fourth dimension because it seems like the only additional variable which can be added to the existing 3 other spatial dimensions. And there are many theories about even more dimensions, Eric Weinstein. But in the end of the day, we can't really tell much about time and what it really is. Does it play into the aforementioned duality aspect of things? Are we surfing on a time wave and it's a blessing to do that? And it should be valued, so in other words, to honor to be alive and just in time with other humans, and therefore supposed souls or spirits. There are theories about potential existing higher beings which are able to perceive future, past and present at the same time, at the same moment. So something which seems to be very abstract and inaccessible for us primitive humans, who are allegedly surfing in the momentum on the wave of time. Maybe it's either one or the other, but never both at the same time. Speaking of a dream or immaterial world in which our souls are gods and time is literally inexistent. Therefore, time travel seems to be very far away from our current understanding of things. It seems more near to a godlike being than achievable by Earth humans, but maybe my simple human mind is not able to conclude. I can imagine futuristic civilizations exploring the potential and dangers of time travel like we once explored and discovered things like nuclear power and weaponry, by discovering the procedure to split the atom. Later in the video, we will explore some theories and ideas from UFO material regarding more dimensions and another viewpoint on how they could be described in a rather logical principle. We proceed to the next chapter. Keypoint 11. Art, Music and Recreation. This might sound a bit humanizing, but if we consider the existence of many different human and non-human races, it's not far-fetched to think a pretty close one to ours, speaking of evolution and physical reality, could have quite similar ways of art and or recreation, or music. Imagine a reality in which we are not only interested in advanced technology in form of military or economic use, but for example in music or creative creations from other worlds, or a way to transform frequencies into our own note system to basically translate the essential creation. Basically translating a music track. I can imagine an advanced community system in which different civilizations are able to conduct their holiday on distant worlds. So basically the same thing we do if we travel on the other side of the planet to check out the beautiful beach, for example. Seems somewhat rational if we extrapolate this into the great scale of our universe. Just one more thing I want to mention here is the highly controversial crop circle phenomena. I will not discuss the origin of these things here, but I've read an interesting comment on YouTube stating, I think crop circles are the work of pranksters, but I'm not sure if they are humans. Just a random thought here, coming with a bag of salt, but connecting with the simple thought that aliens could have a sense of humor. We move to the next key point. Key point number 12. Advanced physics, advanced mathematics and numerology. Strongly connected to the science and nature key points, but still a category which needs to be mentioned. For us, it already was a key to create knowledge and technology, and I guess this will never end. There are patterns and systems, for example the Fibonacci sequence, spiral or the golden ratio, special geometry, Vesica Pescis, etc., which are undoubtedly special and most likely fitting into an even more universal framework. Freely speaking, like as above so below. Our brains seem to have limited calculation power, but we are on the move of developing things like AI and quantum computers, which will unlock a whole new world of numbers and combinations our brain could not fathom. So we move to the next key point, key point 13, complete history of planet Earth as an external observer. If we operate from the standpoint of us not being the only intelligent life form in the cosmos, one could argue the whole evolution of our planet could be somewhat recorded, including every major event in Earth history. We got mainstream science, which was able to give us some clues about the age and inner texture of celestial bodies, and scientific breakthroughs in form of the so beloved JWST are providing us with new data basically every day. On the other hand, we weren't able to discover more than 5% of our oceans and water bodies on the planet, but we are able to map distant bodies like the surface of Mars and Moon with high-definition visuals. So the basic premise, we don't know what we don't know, is showing a reality of incomplete datasets we are working with on a regular basis. Our time measurement is dated because a certain man was born that day, in retrospective multiple hundred years ago. And that for itself is bringing a whole lot of potential errors. So one could assume we are living in our own bubble created by collective human perception, and the possible real reality could be very far-fetched from our own. To talk about life on planet Earth, sometimes when I see a butterfly flying around, I think about how special and modular the essence of life can be, transforming the life force of a caterpillar into a butterfly in such a relatively short time period, making the being experience a whole another experience of life while still in the same reality. Makes me think about all types of fantasy labeled beings which should be possible in theory, maybe on a far distant location in the universe. I'm talking about things like humanoid creatures with wings or fish-like features, for example. Sounds like sci-fi stuff, but at least in my opinion the caterpillar-butterfly combo is fitting into that as well, isn't it? But back to Earth. A clear picture about a complete truthful history of Earth would be great to finally know if there were ancient advanced civilizations who built the pyramids, Easter Islands, or other stuff for example. And many more terrestrial mysteries which are waiting to be solved. We move to Keypoint 14. ESP, psychic abilities, telekinesis, stuff like remote viewing, telepathy. As in many points on this list, the subject which seeks confirmation, and that would be easily shown if a 3,000-year-old highly advanced alien would teleport here and showcasing some telekinesis. Like mentioned in plenty of UFO alien contact cases, the first example which comes to mind, in this case, in which Grays land on a school in South Africa, the so-called Area School UFO incident. A fitting name if you ask me. The big-headed beings with huge black eyes allegedly performed all kinds of telepathic abilities while interacting with these kids and planting visions, etc. I will link some material and interviews from the now adult contactees in the description. We move to Keypoint 15. The possible structure of order and interaction in a crowded universe. Keyword Galactic Federation, or sci-fi scenarios like in, for example, Star Wars, which seem very humanized, even involving non-human entities. The beginning would be the discovery of the so-called techno-signatures detected with big telescopes, like the potential next big step for us. I'll give you a very interesting link in the description, very recent stuff. The next thought would be, hey, if we found some signatures from another intelligence and this would be confirmed, then it doesn't even matter if they are more primitive or advanced. The next thing which comes to mind is how many of more advanced intelligence and civilizations already discovered our signatures. Or cringe messages we send out in space, more or less representing a hippie-type mindset, sending out information about us into the vast undiscovered space, a decision which is unreversible. And we should pray that some benevolent ETs already took care of these things or signals we send out, but maybe this kind of behavior is prohibited by a truly universal rule set, honored and conducted by a potential number of races or civilizations, united in a galactic federation type of community. But maybe the space is so vast and crowded that there are so many civilizations out there on so many levels of evolution that basically everything could happen.
I'd like just for a moment to kind of challenge your imagination here. And I'd like for you to pretend just for a moment that you're living on a different planet. Let's say on your planet, it's very normal, the society that you were born into, that you're very highly evolved. And in your schools, you have exact knowledge of how the universe was created, how life is procreated, the purpose and meaning of life. You have space travel, you visit other worlds, you're telepathic, your memory is superb, you can recall from your subconscious almost any thought you've had your entire life. You were evolved to the point where your lifespan is 5,000 years. You have perfect health. You live in perfect harmony with all the people on your planet. Sounds like a pretty good place, huh? Well, the reason I ask you to imagine this is I want you to kind of get yourself in the state of mind that where you live on a planet where there is exact knowledge and that there is real truth, and that you live with a race of people that have now explored the universe that we live in and have exact knowledges about what's really going on with the universe, with creation, and what life is all about. And this, of course, leads to harmony among people because there's no arguing and so forth among one another because the truths are all really known. You've evolved to that point. Now let's say you go to a school on that planet and you decide to take up planetary engineering. And you go through all these classes and you learn all about other life forms, and you're very excited about the prospect about working with groups of your own people and going out and seeing other societies on other planets and learning how they're going to grow, and watching the races that are not very developed discover fire and learn how to talk and how to build a hut to protect themselves with, and how to find food and how to plant crops and how to establish governments and communities. You want to go watch other races develop. Well, let's say that you fly off to one of them. It's your first assignment. And you get to a planet that's somewhat developed. You look down, and these people, well, they're quite developed. They have industry. They're able to understand the periodic chart of elements. They have communications. They have, education on their world. They know quite a few things. They're building communities, cities, and transportation and so forth. And you look down, my, they're pretty developed. Let me see what I can do, to possibly study and learn more about this race. Well, you get closer and you find out that it's a planet divided by some 200 different, what they call countries. And each one of these countries has their own ideas about what life is like and how to govern their people and how to run their economic system and their barter system. And you find out that practically none of them agree. Not only do they not agree, but you find out suddenly that they're all fighting and arguing. They will even go to the point of killing one another and lying to one another. And then you get very interested. You think, fascinating. These are brand new concepts. And you find yourself not even understanding the emotions of these people. As you listen into their thoughts and feelings, and as you start to watch their reactions to stimuli in their environment, you're perplexed. You weren't quite ready for this in the classroom. Because these kind of feelings, emotions, hate, anger, jealousy, and prejudice, and all this excitement and so forth, doesn't exist on your world. Your world is very calm. Your world is very in balance. Your world exists in sort of a meditative bliss because you've evolved beyond these things. You now approach life with certainty, with truth, and an entirely different attitude than the people on this world are doing. So you have much to learn. And you suddenly notice within the hearts and minds of these people as you start listening that they're not filled with the same comfort, bliss that's on your world. Instead, it's a very difficult, hard life for the people on this planet. They're having a very difficult time getting along. And then it dawns on you, well, everybody on this planet seems to have a different idea about life, and they're all arguing and fighting and killing one another, and most of it's because they really don't have any real knowledge about the universe and what life is really all about. The meaning of life escapes these people, and they don't live in harmony with one another, with their planet. And oh my gosh, they're very close technically to coming out here into the free space. What's going to happen to them when they come out into the free space and suddenly find themselves face to face with all these other races, these higher evolved races, who have all these great technologies and all of this knowledge? Well, it could be a short ending for the people on this planet. We better do something to help them out. Most importantly, let's help them out so they can find peace within themselves, so they can start living as a brotherhood of love and sharing and really discover the wonderful things and the wonderful type of life you can have when you live peacefully in harmony with one another, within creation, and with nature that you live with. Well, you've got your task set out for you, don't you? So you begin to examine this planet to try to find out, well, where can you start? What can you do to kind of help? Well, let's see. We have a couple of hundred different countries. Each one's got a leader. Each one's got a different idea on how to do things. Maybe you could just call all the leaders. No, that's probably not going to work out. They don't listen to one another now. Besides, I'm not allowed to interfere directly with the religious or power structures of a planet. We can't let ourselves be known. Because this starts impinging on these people's right to follow their own path of evolution. It's very important, as we know in our world, to allow everyone their own freedom of will, to allow them to learn on their own. They learn nothing if we do it for them. Difficult. Well, maybe we could just let some of them know. Well, how would we pick the ones that we would choose? How would we choose some of them? Maybe some of them are more intelligent than others. Let's examine more closely. So we spend some time examining different groups of people around the planet and find them, for the most part, just like we knew from class back at home, they're born pretty much with a pretty good sense of spirituality. It's when they come into the world, they're bombarded by all these unusual ideas, prejudices, and belief structures and so forth that really throw them off track and prevent them from really living in harmony with one another. Okay, we can't take too large of a group. Well, let's see. Maybe we could just leave some information for them. How would we do that? We could leave it in a book, or maybe we could just take over their communication system and broadcast all this information to them in their sleep or something. That might not work too good. Could establish fear or whatever if they thought suddenly that they were hearing voices from beyond. They probably wouldn't understand what it was. well, I've got an idea. Let's try on this planet. Let's select one of these people at a very early age. Let's get them before they've been tainted by all of the deceit and lies that goes on their planet. And let's educate them when they're very young. So it might be similar to how they would grow up on our own world, where we really have factual knowledge about life and creation. Let's pick someone who's pretty evolved. Let's find one of them that's older than the rest, that has the potential for learning and understanding. And let's educate him from the very beginning for several years. And we'll give him lots of knowledges and experiences, and maybe we'll take him with us off the planet and let him see for himself other things around the universe. We'll take him to other worlds and let him discover for himself the truth about things. I've got a good idea. We have great techniques. Let's actually move him back in his own history so he can really see for himself the real facts about how his civilization has come about and got to the point that they're at. Then he really will have understanding. He'll know more than anyone else on his planet because he'll have real truths. And he'll know more than anyone else about what's really happened in their world, because I can see their history books are a mess. They've been rewritten on different parts of the world just to serve the interests of certain groups, and all for just to control one another. That's what we'll do. We'll pick one. Let's find one. Well, we scan our instruments and find that all around the planet there are a number of people who have strong potential, but we want to get someone right when they're very young. Very young, let's find one when they're first being born. As a matter of fact, let's find a spirit in the fine matter world. We know how to do that. Let's find a spirit in the fine matter world, and let's intercede with them just as they're being born. So we're involved with their growth from the very beginning. That's it. So we do that. We scan the fine matter world, which is what many people have thinking is heaven or the other side. It's that place where spirits rest when they're not in physical body. We know all about that on our world. As a matter of fact, it's quite easy for us to dial in the equipment on our ship right here, and let's find one. Here's one. Let's bring him right in. Let's cause him to be born. He's about ready anyway. And we'll follow him right through his young years, and we'll educate him as to everything that he needs to know so that he can help the others. That's a good idea. That way he can inspire them. And perhaps some of them will listen. Maybe it'll wake up a few of them, because truth has a way of being very forceful. It's very strong. One man with the truth can stand up in a crowd of angry people and speak the truth, and slowly that truth will find its way to the others. People will turn to the truth. It will make sense to them, and they will come for the truth.
So I especially agree with the last bit here, and this was the voice of Randolph Winters, and I will call that skit a potential ET perspective. It's an excerpt from a tape series about the Billy Meier case, a very controversial and unique legacy UFO and ET contact case. If you want to know more about the case, check the Foliant playlist on my page. And a quick note here and a reminder. I'm trying to remain neutral, but for now I'm not coming to the final conclusion that this is a very elaborate hoax. But I'm happy if somebody provides me some truthful work which can clearly display and debunk the hokey elements, I would say, of the case. But as for now, I will proceed to compare some of the previous 15 key points with information derived from the B.M.C, the Billy Meier case. And this can be seen as a big thought experiment with potential to confirm or debunk the information claimed in the vast material of the case. So let's proceed and start with the first point. This time in a little bit quicker manner. Point 1. Social life on a planetary scale and between individuals. So there are multiple angles to operate from approaching this list. There are two specific ones I want to elaborate on. A. How our social behavior is affected if it would be 100% confirmed that the Billy Meier stuff is accurate and truthful. And B. How the advanced ET beings are supposedly living on their worlds and planets. So for point A, we can see it would change nothing immediately, but slowly over time people would accept the reality and might stop to kill and lie to each other while being exposed to the truthful information and how advanced human life really can look like. In the B.M.C material it's been said that this process will take up to 800 years, and the timing isn't a coincidence as well, speaking of the so-called Age of Aquarius, supposedly a time of potential change and opportunity. The detailed information about cosmic happenings creating this phenomena are to find in the material in a great scale. So point B, on how they live, they got a very similar planet out of multiple, with 550 million people, on which they determine is the optimal amount of people on a planet of our and their size. And the access to great technologies and spiritual development is leading to a very sensitive and socially advanced entity, which supposedly they are not able to be present in our world for more than 30 minutes without experiencing massive anxiety and headaches caused by, we can call it, vibration and energy emitting from our chaotic world and population. There's a lot more, but I don't want the video to be too long, so we'll cut it here and proceed with the next key point. I will leave links in the description to the particular material for people who are interested. So point 2, technological progress in all areas. So A would be how our tech process is affected by ET contact. According to these ETs, we the human race need to work on other things before we need to get more technological. We already got nukes and so forth, but our mind and spirit seem rather primitive. So I guess that's why it's not succeeded yet. And open contact with these beings, because I can imagine our leaders starting to claim high tech and not being satisfied with talk about spiritual evolution. And point B, what tech they got. So the race Billy Meyer in this case is in contact with. Fact of the matter is that these ETs manage to travel here from their world and are even capable of things like time travel. They consider themselves a more spiritual than technological race, and their tech is even endlessly more advanced than ours in every imaginable aspect. A few examples. 1,000 years lifespan, almost perfect health, traveling way faster than the speed of light, inhabiting multiple planets, and the ability to traverse throughout different universes. The list could go on for days, and if you're interested in this type of stuff, I will, like I said, leave links in the box. So point number 3, authenticity of religions and belief systems. This key is rather easy to conclude. These ETs claim that every existing religion on Earth is more or less misleading, and the only real truth is the creation energy teaching, as they call it, which is in parts present and embedded on a small scale in some belief structures on planet Earth right now, or in recent times, like in the Indian Vedas, for example, they say. But the status quo is to not have any misleading belief structure or religion in their world. Therefore, they are strongly recommending to conduct the same behavior here. So A would be to eliminate any false belief structures on planet Earth, and B, the existence of a truthful, completed energy creation teaching on their advanced alien world. So, as you may have acknowledged, I have skipped key point 4, ufology and how it evolves, here because it will get answered within the next 2 key points. Additionally, I have put point 5 and 6 together, nature, space, universe, multiverse, God creation and the Big Bang, which will be the following chapter. So all these things are now strictly connected to the available knowledge and truths the civilization got access to, so they are determined by the level of ultimate knowledge, the singular truth of things. So things are getting a little sticky here. So out of these 7 words from the chapter, which all mean something different, one seemed to hit the nail on the head: creation. Like mentioned in the last chapter, the creation energy teaching, as it is called, it's seemingly, at least according to the advanced humanoid ETs from the Billy Meyer case, the so-called Pleiadians or Pleiaren, which is explaining the structure of our universe and the way the creation energy, which we would call many things, including the Big Bang and God. A few words on how these ETs describe the thing we call Big Bang. The universe is divided into 7 units, rings or belts, that entirely together form the whole universe. And all of these rings are rotating against each other and have different diameters and an ovoid shape. These 7 rings, which we call belts, are the following: 1. Central core. 2. Ur-core belt. 3. Ur-space belt. 4. Solid state matter universe belt. 5. Transformation belt. 6. Creation belt. And 7. Displacement belt. And we also call the creation belt the creation matter belt or the expansion belt, and the displacement belt, the last and extreme, embodies, according to your sense, a bumper belt. In the interior center of the universe is the real Ur-core, which grows with each fallback of the creation, so of the whole universe, doubling itself in size. Thus, the Ur-core will be twice as large with the next fallback as it is today. From this Ur-core, referring to the energy field resting in the Ur-space belt, which is the fallen back creation, new energies form from the renewed expansion to the next universe, whereby at the end of the slumber time a new Big Bang takes place and a new expansion creates a new universe. generally all things of a much more refined form, which means that all coarse material will not be so stable anymore as it was in this universe. The Ur space belt itself is that part of the universe from which the expansion of the creation occurs, in which the creation energy also slumbers, and on the other hand, after every fallback, develops itself and takes up new fundamental forces from the Ur core, just to expand again through a renewed Big Bang. Of course, the dimensions of the Ur space belt also grows from fallback to fallback because through every expansion of the universe and through the associated unchangeable effects and extreme expansion that again follows contraction, the mass of the entire creation grows, always doubling itself in size. So thus it becomes evident that this is, in the becoming and passing of the universe, a cycle of Big Bang expansion, contraction, Big Bang expansion, etc. is arranged. So this was an excerpt from the contact notes referring to the questions around the Big Bang. And I will link more information about this in the description. I will cut this short here and move to the next section. Point 7. Existence, order and history of intelligent life in the universe. One of the most critical points in this thought experiment, the revelation of us not being the only intelligent life form out there, will be a collective shock. And if there is two, it's very likely that there are many more civilizations in the universe. And even the last one will understand. So speaking of the situation in which an open official contact or 100% clear proof of the Billy Meier case would be a reality, I'm pretty sure we would get a lot of interesting information about many different ET species. And many new fields would open up for Earth human research. I don't know the exact numbers, but the Plejaren ETs say that there are more than 400 different humanoid types, with just slight changes in anatomy and physique. Example, the different eye lobes, which is the case for the Plejaren in this UFO case. And of course, not only humanoid life is existing, that's just one whole type of species, as far as I could interpret the huge data set provided by the case. Like I mentioned, I'm only touching the detailed explanations given by the B.M.C. and leaving links for everyone to do their own research. So we go to the next point, 8 and 9, life and death and the according cycles, the spirit, and including the point general duality. So the current state of knowing about these things on planet Earth, as for now, is very limited. We basically know that we are alive and that we will die at a certain point, but to acknowledge the existence of the spirit for itself, that it's not only chemical reaction in the brain which creates consciousness, is already far-fetched for some people. Every individual got another state of knowing, but I bet that most of you listening would agree with that statement projected on the average Joe Schmo in the total population of Earth. So everything which can potentially teach us in this area in a truthful way should be welcome. I'm not talking about any religion's thoughts or programs here. So now I'm going to try to give a compressed breakdown of the interpretation of life and the evolution from the advanced ET race present in the Billy Meier case. So at first I want to read an excerpt about the so-called 7 stages of life and a few additional things extracted from the contact reports. I want to say here that this can a little bit be all over the place because there are like 7 stages, and within these 7 stages there are 7 levels or something. So if I read this, it may sound a little bit weird, but I'm trying my best to keep it smooth. Stage number 1, primary life. Primary development of the intellect and the consciousness. Primary intellectual and consciousness-based thinking. Primary intellect-based thinking. Primary use of intellect and consciousness power. Primary intellectual actions. Primarily willful thinking and acting. Intellectual conduct of life. Life forms in these stages are designated by already rational endowed beings as mentally ill. Ill in consciousness, as idiots, etc., whose consciousness and intellect, however, are in reality simply not yet developed in knowledge-based terms. New spirit who has to first form itself through learning and experiences, etc. So this is the first stage. Stage number 2, rationality-based life. Primary development of rationality. Effective realization of the rationality and its use. Primary recognition and acknowledgement of higher influences. Belief in higher influences without having knowledge. Belief in higher powers, deluded belief, fear of evil. Veneration of what is good, etc. and so on. Germination, time for religions, etc. Primary recognition of the real reality. The stage of the average Earth human according to these to these ETs. Knowledge-based development, research, first spiritual cognitions and their use, spiritual healing, telepathy, etc. Primary development of knowledge and essence of wisdom. Stage number 3. Intellect-based life. High development of the intellect, high technology, second use of spiritual power with first cognitions. Primary procreation of life forms. Realization and use of knowledge, truth and essence of educated Earth human wisdom. Slow reduction of belief assumptions, scientists, etc. First utilization of knowledge and essence of wisdom. Recognition and utilization of the laws of nature. Creation of hypertechnology. Second procreation of life forms. Natural use of knowledge and essence of wisdom and recognition of spiritual powers. Further reduction of belief assumptions. Life in the knowledge of the essence of wisdom, truth and the logic. Primary recognition of the reality as real absolutum. Few borderlines and humanities scholars. Stage number 4. Real life. Clear knowledge about the reality as real absolutum. Recognition of the spiritual knowledge and the spiritual essence of wisdom. Utilization of the spiritual knowledge and the spiritual essence of wisdom. Recognition of the reality of the creation and her laws. According to the Pleiadians, this is the stage where Billy Meyer is on right now. So he seems to be a very high developed human being on this planet. Life according to the creational laws, clarification of the present stage, which is spirit and the intellect, recognition of real tasks and already tending toward power of the spirit, total reduction of all belief structures, I guess, to the next assumptions. Deliberate and directed utilization of spiritual and consciousness-based powers, procreation of first viable life forms. Stage number 5, creational life, procreation and direction of life forms, creation of machine apparatus-based viable life forms, development of spiritual and consciousness-based power for the control of material and organic life forms, willful control of the life in all its forms and species, stages of recognitions, recollection of past lives, etc., essence of wisdom, kingship, king of wisdom, the second to last highest might knowledge. King of wisdom is a term these ETs use. It's like the highest level they can evolve spiritually, so you're not like the president of the United States and had got the most power. The man with the most power is like the king of wisdom, as far as I recollect from the material. The second to last highest might knowledge. Recognition of the spiritual peace, the universal love, and the creational harmony. Stage number 6, spiritual life. Acknowledgement and realization of the spiritual peace, the universal love, and the creational harmony. Life in purely spiritual form. Spiritual creations. Disembodiment of the spirit from organic bodies. First spiritual existence, final spiritual existence. Transition into the creation. Stage number 7, creational life. Twilight sleep over 7 periods, eternities. Awakening and beginning of creating in the creation as creation. During 7 periods, eternity. Creating of life forms. Creating of new spirits and relative absolute fulfillment of creation. Creation of spiritual greatness in the creation. Relative absolute fulfillment of the creation in the creation. Last attending of highest absolutely full development of the 7th period eternity. The twilight sleep of the creation outlasts 7 periods, eternities, great times. There's the number here. I'm trying to transmit you the number. It's 311,040, so 311,040, and you just add 9 zeros. And that's the years and the amount of the 1 period, eternity, great time. Just you got a perspective here. By the twilight sleep of the creation, all life and the entire universe cease to exist. Only after her newly awakening does she begin to create everything anew. During her twilight sleep, there's neither space nor time. There's only the nothing, since they lie asleep in the unending womb of the creation and the null time. If there's no creation, no creating thought, then there's also no power, no time, and no space. There's only duration in the nameless nothing. But concerning the nameless nothing, don't think too much about it. It's also a mystery to us, which we cannot solve. So that's essentially the interpretation, and I want to add some more things in my own words. Human bodies are vehicles for our soul and spirit, which is getting reborn on this planet for many million years. Already accurate for the most people living on this earth right now. So if one dies, for example at 100 years of age, the soul rests in a non-material state for about 1.5 amount of the time spent living, so in this case about 150 years. Later, according to their system, a soul gets reborn here in another body with a totally new and unrelated personality, but still carries the same spirit, which is learning and evolving in every lifetime more or less, running through these 7 stages in the aforementioned part. So this can make sense, I guess, just touching on these great subjects. We go into the next chapter, which is point 10 and 12, time, dimensions and time travel, advanced physics, mathematics and numerology. Time is a human concept according to these ETs, and our measurement in numbers is a type of way to organize and coordinate. But as far as I know, these ETs specifically do not have to measure time like we do, due to their high evolved spirit and correlating lifespan, which can be over 1000 years. So basically 10 or, truly 12 of our average lifetimes. A few words on the matter of time travel, which seem to be a technological breakthrough connected to fast as light speed travels and thousands of years research and exchange with other even more advanced races and civilizations. Several time travels are conducted in the material, in the case, in the future and in the past. Another thing I want to mention here, you may recognize the name Pleiadians or Pleiaren. But if we look at the Pleiades in our night sky and do research, we will soon know that these planets are inhabitable. The reason these ETs are claiming to still come from this 400 light years away constellation is the fact that they live in another so-called time-space configuration, which is basically another timeline, in which these planets are habitable, at least some of them. Their home planet is called Era, and it seems to be very Earth-like, but not totally similar. And they are able to traverse between timelines, or at least these are the most accurate words to describe it, to the best of my ability. So on top being extraterrestrials, they are also time travelers and not even originating from our same physical plane of existence, at least from the time perspective. I know we are getting deep here, but if we just continue the scenario for a moment, it's quick to conclude that out there's way more happening than we think. In all types of planes and timelines, even including the mentioned time-space connection and barriers between universes, like the so-called Dahl and Dern universe, which is mentioned in the material. But we go to the next point. Point 11, art, music and recreation. I want to start this section with a quick excerpt from the contact notes. Billy asks the Pleiadians, do you also know music, literature and art, and do you have appropriate schools? And he gets the answer, sure, these things are common to all human life forms in the universe. We also have appropriate schools for these things, but they can only be attended by really talented people who will later work in these things for the benefit of all. The interested parties are judged according to the presence of talent and admitted to the school, so only real talents are admitted. There are therefore no such things as customary on Earth, namely that performers appear in public who make ear-hurting sounds. I often find that very horrible when I listen to earthly music. Then Billy says, it is just barbarian music, some manslaughter, some blood, some death cries, squeaking, hysterical nagging, and some nonsense of supposed love and moldy romance. That's what the earthworm thinks, you must understand. Then the ET is talking again and saying, it's terrible, but all the more I am happy about the really good and harmonic earthly music, which has nothing to do with these sounds, which are often bad and unmusical. Then Billy talks again and says, you are right, but how does your music sound and what kind of instruments do you have? These are like the questions I ask to myself sometimes if they do the stuff at least a little bit similar than we do. Then the ET responds, I cannot describe the music to you because it would sound completely strange to you. Likewise, the instruments would be alien to you. Who guessed that? Sounds pretty understandable if you ask me, and additionally I want to bring one of the few examples mentioned by these ETs for good earthly music. The one I surely remind of is Richard Wagner, Ride of the Valkyrs. It's a rather famous and indeed magnificent piece of music, although these ETs say only a few segments are good for their ears, so it seems to be very complex, but I can guarantee you if I'm so curious just to try to listen to some good old Pleiadian music or a piece of music which they will describe as very good in their words, or a great painting. I hope this will be possible in the near future. So point 13, complete history of planet Earth as an external observer. So guess what? Here we got our way more advanced and most importantly friendly external observer, which I hope is so highly advanced that there's no chance of any motive of deceiving us, just as a general thought at this point. Fact of the matter is the happenings on Earth are recorded by these ETs from the earliest of times, and information is present in great detail and hundreds of pages throughout the contact notes and books written by Billy Meyer. I'm trying to give you a quick breakdown regarding the history of humanity on planet Earth derived from the B.M.C. material. So humans are way older than Earth, or at least most of the life on Earth ain't got his origin here on this planet. Speaking of human races, and somewhat confirmed by the very high variety of human races and genes allegedly developing in a very relatively short time frame. Most of the human races currently living on this planet are not from here. Speaking of 2/3 of the white population as well as the Asian, Chinese, Japanese races, for example, which came multiple thousand of years ago and interceded with other races. The brown and the red Indian race are the most natural humans from Earth, speaking of their origin from here. According to the Pleiadians, all types of known human races are spread throughout the universe, and there are millions of populated planets by to us known and unknown types of humans. Just want to touch on these things like Atlantis, which was very real, advanced ET immigrant-based civilization many thousands of years ago. This stuff is, according to them, the real history of humans and planet Earth. And it's defined in great detail in the material. And I will mention it later again, but let me say it here once. If you got any questions or if you're curious about the ET perspective and take about anything, let me know. I will look through the material and provide a detailed answer. We go to point number 14, ESP, psychic abilities, telekinesis and telepathy. So according to the measurements of these ETs, only a very few people on Earth are far enough evolved in a spiritual way to conduct telepathic communication and telekinesis. But it seems to be a very natural next level of a more evolved spirit and psyche. A very interesting footnote on this is their take on remote viewing, a thing which is very popular and almost interceded with modern ufology content these days, and in the general perception more accepted than the Billy Meyer case, most likely because of stigma and counterintelligence. But let me show you another excerpt regarding Ingo Swann and remote viewing from a contact report. So Billy says, I still have a few questions, one of which concerns an alleged medium called Ingo Swann, as well as a major of the US Army called ED, who operate the so-called Psi-Tech, an alleged technical remote sensing by which even the most secret things are supposed to be recognized and discovered from afar. As it claimed, at least such thing is claimed in magazine 2000 from page 81 onwards. It is thereby also clarified that one would be able to get to know the said ED in Germany, who would over there provide a 3-day seminar at an outrageous price of 1,800 German mark. So you know, this is an old contact report. It's pre-2000, so you know there's not even the euro in, like the currency euro arrived in Europe at this point. First, do you know anything of the story? Second, is this ED to be taken seriously? Thirdly, what about the Swan medium? Fourth, what to make of this remote viewing, remote sensing? So then, the ET answers, the man ED is one of many who with unhonest means pull the money out of the pockets of the faithfully and stupidly believing human beings. The long-distance perception training course he has initiated is an infamous fraud, just as the alleged long-distance perception corresponds to pure charlatanism. So, fraud, I guess. It is true that the USA and the Soviet Union have carried out studies of the same kind and are still carrying them out today. But this has already for a long time been no secret anymore, because a lot of secret material has leaked to the outside via the so-called remote viewing. The efforts of the secret research of the USA and Soviet Union brought about certain but no high-value successes, which can however in no way be connected with the charlatanism of ED. Psi-Tech, this is not the alleged remote perception, but a name of a company called that way. With regard to Ingo Swann, it must be said that many things are with him to be very unhonest and that things are being pushed into him which do not correspond to the truth. Everything is thus to be classified in charlatanism, lies and fraud, if the facts are really investigated. Excluded from this are only certain secret attempts and secret successes of the USA and Soviet Union in terms of remote perception. Remote viewing as the English term for it is. So it's interesting that, if I may play devil's advocate here, the most controversial and often as schizo-rambling marked case provides critical information regarding a certain new age topic. Very interesting to me and logical at the same time, considering the data points they got and the ones we got. So I'm happy to hear you guys' take on this ESP take. Next and last point on this list, point 15. possible structures of order and interaction in a crowded universe. To quickly elaborate on the last point on this list, this time including the information from the B.M.C. So there seem to be clear rules under which these ETs are allowed to even start and create the Billy Meier UFO case or the so-called mission in their eyes. To use a time window of potential great change and a procreated individual to spread knowledge and lead our, in some sense, connected civilization through these times and educate us. Which, by the way, they estimate will be a globally accepted thing in the next 700 years. Connected to the age of Aquarius, receiving radiation from the so-called central sun of our universe. If you read the contact notes, you will clock that this seemed to be an unusual and special situation for them as well, to interact with a lower evolved life form, and their action continuously need to be confirmed and passed by the so-called gremium, a higher council type of thing which is making the important decisions. So things seem to be very restricted and regulated, at least talking about the good guys. Talking about the bad guys, so there's good and evil seemingly on every scale, and there are more places than Earth in the galaxy in which misery is seemingly happening. There's a story in the contact notes in which a race inhabiting multiple planets and 3 suns was planning to attack Earth and therefore Earth humans, but the good ETs present in the Billy Meier case allegedly took care of the situation, and this allegedly happened in the late 1970s or early 80s. So if that's actually true, we should be grateful, and God knows what is happening around us in space right now at this moment. So this was the second rundown of the key list, and we covered an awful lot of chapters already, but this video isn't over yet. So please stay tuned, as we're entering the third segment of the video. I'm not done yet.
You usually find that people that are not telling the truth are evasive. They look away to get their answers and things like that. Mr. Meier looked me square in the eye and answered every question, looked right into my soul when he answered the question. He gave me simple answers and very direct answers. He gave them to me in English, and I was convinced that he was telling me what he believed to be the truth. Well, I became more convinced that the photographs were real when he took me over all of the photographic sites, and I could see that there's no place to suspend lines into the scene. The hill dropped away at a steep angle. There were no anchor points. There was no way that he could have thrown it into the scene, because I saw scenery on the side of each image area that was greater than you could throw up a small model into. Also, it wasn't pushed up from the bottom, and I became convinced that there was no way I could figure out that anybody could get models into the scene. We found that the metal, which we tested in several metallurgical laboratories, not just one, we found that the metal was unique, that it had unique properties, that most metallurgists agreed that it could not have been made on this planet. The sounds were unique. We went to the biggest sound bank in the world, the Groton Naval Sound Research Laboratory, Groton, Connecticut, run by the Navy. It has all the sounds in the bank that you can get. They're computer controlled. When we put the UFO sounds into the bank, it couldn't find a match.
Hey, Lee.
Hey, Tom. What's up?
Just got this back. We sent this photograph over to Neil Davies. Just got his report back.
Neil Davis.
Physicist, aerospace industry subcontractor.
Right, okay, got it.
Examined the photograph with microdensitometer. Also, these you're seeing here are the black and white color separations that he did, and let's see what the results were here. Examination of these plots did not reveal any details which would cast doubt upon the authenticity of the photograph. And there's more. Color copy names, color separation. Nothing was found to indicate a hoax. And his conclusion is even more interesting. Let's see, black specks. Nothing was found in the examination of this print which could cause me to believe that the object in the photo is anything other than a large object photographed at distance from the camera.
This is the new picture that we digitized last week using the microdensitometer. We transferred it over to floppy disk here. Let's look at the first map in low-pass filtering.
Why these particular colors on the screen? What are we seeing?
I mapped it in such a way that the real colors are not what we're seeing, but one shade of a color that's really similar to another one, like 2 shades of red, are in high contrast so that we can really see the difference.
I see. Have you found any anomalies yet, of any kind? Anything
I find strange things, but nothing that would tell me that someone's tampered with the pictures.
I see. Nothing indicating a hoax method or indicating superimposition or anything like that?
Nothing that I can find.
Have you been working on the grain at all yet?
Yeah, I have. What we're seeing here is that the film grain holds up the way that it should. In the pixel distortion test, it appears to me and to the computer that this object was photographed in the same original piece of film at the same time that the background was photographed. In other words, no overlay.
Mm-hmm.
I would say these pictures are genuine.
This is one of the...
Because of the unusual nature of the findings, the fragments are given to chemist Marcel Vogel, an expert in crystalline structures and inventor of many substances used in computer components.
The first specimen I looked at is a metal specimen, which I classified as F1. This is the appearance that it looked at, rather golden colored on one side, silvery colored here. We find that in truth it is silver and a small amount of copper. We look at it here, this same area here under polarized light. What is unusual of this small specimen is both highly crystalline nature, and suddenly we come to a metal section as we see here, and it showed a combination of metals that I've not encountered in any normal bit of metallurgy, both crystalline deposits and metal. Now, we, with any technology that I know of, could not achieve this on this Earth plane. I could not explain the type of material that I have and its discreteness by any known combination of materials. I could not put it together myself as a scientist. It's also a challenge because I showed it to one of my friends who was a metallurgist, and he shook his head. He said, I don't see how it can be put together. And we find that in this area there is evidence of machining, that there are striations which look like the sample has been worked mechanically. It doesn't look like anything that we've made here. At this moment, I would feel very much inclined to accept what was given to me as being true.
So this was a quick presentation of old records showing investigators proving the B.M.C, or at least the validity of the presented evidence, especially UFO photos and the metal samples analyzed by Marcel Vogel, etc. So this is either a highly elaborate hoax with all the scene and more people involved to make us believe the case is genuine, or it is actually genuine. And the fact that this is not acknowledged by many people as a genuine case, more the opposite way, a massive hoax, after they've seen old recordings of a UFO and conclude it must be on a string, and they think this is the most logical conclusion regarding the case, is that it must be an elaborate cult-like hoax. Or would this be natural if the case is actually genuine? To make things clear, I'm trying to stimulate thoughts here and not conducting proselytization or anything around those lines. I will now continue to present some, in my opinion, potentially interesting subjects which are allegedly explained in the Billy Meier material. I picked 5 out of possible multiple 100 claims or data described in the material from the B.M.C. So we go to the next chapter. More interesting subjects explained by the B.M.C material. Like I mentioned, I picked 5 things here, and I might do another video in which I will cover many more things explained by the B.M.C. Just let me know what topic you're interested in and what you want to know, and let's try to compare and therefore confirm truth or remove fraudulent information from the equation. But for now, let's start with the first, we can call it mystery, from the shortlist. The Easter Island. I'm going to read an excerpt from the contact notes now, where Billy asks the ETs about the secrets of Easter Islands. But maybe you can reveal the secrets of Easter Island to me. In particular, is it about the colossal heads, which are still a mystery to Earth humans today? Nobody knows how they came into being and who created them. May you say something about them? Then the ET replies, the Earth human is misguided if she wants to make the concerns of Easter Island an isolated concern. The events of earlier times on this island are in direct connection with the country which you still call Tiwanaku today, as it was called already at the earliest time, in spite of past repeated changes. Easter Island and Tiwanaku are more than 5,000 kilometers apart, and yet they are directly related to each other. However, the history of the connection goes back to very early times and ended only 2,550 years ago, calculated back from today, 1976. As I once explained to you, the last decisive settlement of the Earth by extraterrestrial intelligences took place about 13,500 years ago. As you know, several of the immigrant horde became renegades, including a man in the rank of a half-Ishwish called Viracocha, who was already very old and extremely power-hungry. His name is still handed down on the Earth today, but with a small change, because for a long time now he has only been called Viracocha, and also as Ishwish, although he was only the half of the rank of such a person. Under his patronage and his cruel leadership, the highlands of Tiwanaku at an altitude of about 4,000 meters were conquered, as was the Delta Island, which he called Easter Island. After this conquest, Viracocha settled with a special bodyguard of cherubim on the small island Mot, which is situated in front of Easter Island, which you call Motunui or similar to my knowledge today. At that time it was called Mot because the cherubim were animal-human life forms. In this case they were all bird-like. Mot means bird in our original language, so the island was called the Mot Island, or also the Island of the Bird People, as it is still called today. So Viracocha or Viracocha resided there. He and his followers escaped Lyrans like many others, who came to Earth were of gigantic physique, by earthly measures about 11 meters tall. They were the ones who taught the dwarfish, normal-growing inhabitants of Tiwanaku and Easter Island, who were procreations between Earthlings and previously immigrated intelligences from the vastness of the universe, in many things providing them with their own highly developed technology, and teaching them how to operate the devices and machines. Thus, they also taught the natives of Tiwanaku and Easter Islands the work of stone masonry. And they let themselves be celebrated as gods. With the help of the giants and the machines and other equipment, the natives worked many meters large head formations out of the lava stone, placed these also with the help of machines, randomly around the island. Similar events took place in the areas you call Pisco, Nazca and Sacsayhuaman, because the same giants had settled there. Thus many statues and other structures were created, whereby also the shape of the spaceships on Easter Island were reproduced from rocks of the lava walls, which have survived to this day, namely oval-shaped stones, because the spaceships had this shape. We go to the next point on this list, which is the Bermuda Triangle. I'm continuing with another excerpt. The issues surrounding the Bermuda Triangle and the centers of Madagascar and the Japanese Devil's Sea have changed fundamentally. As you know, your entire solar system travels like a gigantic spaceship through interstellar space, approaching more and more the constellation of Hercules, which will be reached in about 2 millennia. Due to this migration of the entire solar system, the axis point of the radiation of those large celestial bodies, which caused the dimensional gates in the Bermuda Triangle in Madagascar and in the Japanese Devil's Sea, has slowly shifted more and more. For about 18 years now, radiation has become weaker and more time differentiated, so that it has often been completely suspended for days on end. In the last 2 years, the radiation decreased even more and was completely neutralized, several times lasting months. The last offshoots of the radiation bands, which are measured in many light years, that were only fragmentary at their uttermost range, last touched the Earth about 1.5 months ago, on the 10th of July 1977. Since then, the Earth is out of the range of the radiation and no dimension barrier or dimension gate still exists at any other place on the planet. These phenomena are absolutely abolished and according to our calculations should never occur again, because the whole solar system orbits the constellation of Hercules, and there are no stars at close or further distances that would produce this kind of radiation. All occurrences in the Bermuda Triangle near Madagascar and in the Japanese Devil's Sea have been classified since the 10th of July 1977 in purely earthly natural occurrences, whereby the natural occurrence are to be named as the most important forces. In particular, the geomagnetic and underwater gas surges, which occur very strongly at the places mentioned, whereby compass devices and many other navigation devices, etc. fail or show false indications. And this is the case with you at the center several times. I've mentioned this in my other videos about the B.M.C. and I'm not perfectly informed on the matter of the subject and myths surrounding the Bermuda Triangle. I leave that take here and hope people which are more informed on the matter can potentially extract something from it. We go to the next point, which is the Roswell UFO crash. I'm continuing with another excerpt. The Roswell case is reality because the UFO crash actually took place there. But this is denied up to the present day and will continue to be denied in the distant future by the American military and secret services, as well as by all government agencies, namely with flimsy, changing, stupid and ridiculous excuses that will only surely testify to the fact that everything actually happened. With the crashed object, it concerned a beam ship from the reticulum systems. The crew did not consist of natural human life forms, but of human androids of a bioorganic nature, which means that they were artificial human androids, which the US Army also got a hold of, some living and some dead. And these were secretly kept in secret stations. With the bioorganic androids, it concerned effective artificial life forms, so not robots or the like, but independently thinking beings, in every way safe, capable of making decisions, made out of living material and living organs, bred in accordance with the human beings who are located in the reticulum system. In Earth human terms, these bioorganic androids bred by the reticulum human beings are actual life forms, and as such, they are respected by the reticulum people and are also appreciated and treated. For the androids are indeed artificial human beings. As such, they stand under the command of the real humans of the reticulum systems. On those behalf, they also carry out excursions, etc., to foreign star systems and planetary systems. And such artificial human forms were associated with the crash, as I already explained. The intelligence of these android beings stems from a bioorganic consciousness of an artificial form, which is just as capable of development as the consciousness of the normal natural person. Therefore, it can also be creative and inventive. The type of consciousness is designed uniformly and collectively in each android, which means that all the androids have a uniform consciousness form. And so, they are collectively like-minded and thus they have a collective form of telepathic communication. The form of consciousness of these artificial life forms is built on an artificial consciousness, which does not correspond to an actual personality, but rather to an artificial form which can think quite independently, act and decide as well as develop itself further, but which is not arranged into conscious evolution, but only functions on a conscious instinct-based manner. This means that there is therefore probably a capacity for the development of the conscious form whereby ideas are created and thought processes can take place, which are creative, inventive and progressive, and thus capable of being developed. But all of this just deals with conscious instinct-based matters and has nothing to do with conscious evolution. In any event, the form of consciousness of these bioorganic androids is an artificial organic element, which has no inherent creational spirit form. The form of consciousness of the androids is formed in such a wise that it has a certain independence, in spite of the collectivity, whereby a degree of individuality is given, which cannot be compared, however, to an actual personality in a conscious-based sense. Nevertheless, it's its own individual, which may seem like a contradiction to the Earth person because they cannot understand these things in the tiniest part of their mind and still cannot make any conceptions of this. He/she will only gain these conceptions and the understanding as well as the knowledge relate to such android beings in the distant future. The bioorganic androids of the reticulum human beings contain an authoritative programming in their artificial consciousness, which prevents that the artificial beings could ever rise over their designers, respectively their creators, but the time of their lives is limited to 300 years of devoted servitude to these. Nevertheless, they are entirely free and can in every way decide as to what responsibilities they undertake, exercise or decline, and thus whether they want to focus on the task or not. So they are in no way subject to compulsion by their creators. In the kind and wise in which they are biologically created, they are incapable of performing sexual acts and also reproducing themselves. Their own and appropriate kind of consciousness is contained in their artificial brains, and as I already mentioned, the artificial bioorganic consciousness does not contain a creationist spirit form, which would drive and animate this by its own energies. Animation is provided by the artificial brain, which is constructed in such a form that it can absorb and use the cosmic electromagnetic life energy so that the existence of life is guaranteed. It is this cosmic energy by which the artificial life forms are animated and also made alive. All this, however, could not be recognized by all the doctors, surgeons and pathologists, etc. in the American secret stations, where the crashed android beings were taken. But how could they, since their knowledge relating to this was not in place yet? In fact, it will still take many centuries and even several millennia before the terrestrial scientists arrive at the possibility of creating such being like the bioorganic androids. Therefore, these beings will remain an unsolvable mystery to them for a very long time, as it is also the case for them with regard to the crashed beings in Roswell. So we move to the next point on this list, which is cattle mutilation and alien abductions. And this is a statement extracted from the contact notes. The nasty machinations of the government, military and secret service people in respect of the demonizing of extraterrestrials have increased over more since 1938. Indeed slowly and successively, thus however all the more incessantly and expansively until into the 80s. Essentially the greatest machination for the bedevilment of extraterrestrials began, through a shifty structure in the fashion of the Secret Service as well as miscellaneous UFO and extraterrestrial enemies. Stories came about like the ghastly human and animal mutilations, the theft of human babies and the impregnation of terrestrial women through foreign visitors out of outer space. Horror stories were also decimated about subterranean laboratories and the inhuman experiments taking place there. Were that still not enough, because the angst of the extraterrestrials wreaked even worse blooms, like for example it would be asserted that women impregnated by aliens would after some months have the baby growing in their womb, snatched out to be allowed to finally grow further in a fluid-filled incubator, etc., in order to breed up a new humanity, etc. Using these hybrid children. A further horror story was that the Earth humans would be abducted in order to take that genetic material that would be necessary for the extraterrestrials, further breeding of humans, who would serve as, so to say, nourishment providers, because the evil foreigners out of the depths of outer space supposedly nourish themselves on human blood. Similarly, it would also be asserted in respect to the animal mutilations in America, whereby the related far-fetched feeble-mindedness that namely beef blood demonstrates a genetic relationship with human blood. Therefore, the mutilated cattle have their blood sucked out to store in the blood banks for crisis times, naturally through the evil extraterrestrials. Yet even that is not enough, because still many other assertions, slandering and lies, and clearly to be recognized as feeble-minded, are put about, through which the humans are led into error and would be shifted into angst and terror, as has had manifold success. And certain mass hysteria has been released by a worldwide group of certain Earth humans, which also leads to feelings of hate, etc. Before we continue, I want to mention one thing here quick, and this is the Skinwalker Ranch phenomena, which fits perfectly in these alleged counterintelligence efforts mentioned a few seconds ago. Think for yourself. They seem to microwave cows and blame aliens as an entertainment value. I'm gonna put a link in the description from a very actual Skinwalker Ranch episode and you're gonna see what I mean. This is the thumbnail, by the way. Put it on the screen. So yeah, this take from the B.M.C material seems very genuine and believable to me. So what's your take? But let's go to the last quick point on this list, which is Bigfoot and Sasquatch. I'm gonna read a quick excerpt here, the last excerpt for today. Your researchers and scientists have already found many in-between mutations between humans and ape beings, but usually only as skeletons or partly skeletons. These in-between mutations, part human, part ape, being are known to the human beings under names as Africanus, Peking Man and Neanderthal, and so on. 4 different species of them have survived over the past millennia, and the descendants still live today, although no longer in large hordes, but only isolated or in very small groups. They are so wild and shy that human beings will hardly ever see them. The human beings have coined special names for them, Yeti and so forth. So we finished this quick list, and now I'll give you my final thoughts, a quick conclusion, and the epilogue of this video. So at first I want to make clear that this video is created with the intention to stimulate the mind and conduct a major thought experiment with the general premise of how our life on Earth would change after getting an open contact with another, most arguably more advanced extraterrestrial intelligence or race. First in general, and in the second part I took the only, at least known to me, UFO contact case, which is able to provide a comparable amount of precise information regarding the aforementioned premise or core subject of this video, leaving out a straight judgment about the material itself. In this case, so even if you are not considering the B.M.C as a potential genuine case, and therefore the material as somewhat useless, you should still be able to conduct the thought experiment or just think about these kind of scenarios. Regarding the B.M.C specifically, if anyone is interested in the material for any reason, check out the description. I will try to provide detailed anchor points in which you should be able to navigate in the huge pool of contact notes, etc., as well as my free videos in which I present and starting to analyze the case. The main goal of this video is to play with the thought of us Earth humans who are currently living on this planet getting in contact with another intelligent alien race, a scenario which will surely happen in the future. The only open variable is the exact time, or in case, if it already happened, an event which provide our civilization with exact proof in retrospective. You get my point. So please let me know your thoughts about this special episode and consider to like and subscribe if you're interested in more deep content. So the program ends now, and thanks for watching. Libra.